right, let's flip it over to the defensive side of the ball and talk about the defensive line. I personally thought that it wasn't as bad as it seemed. When I went through to do grades after having watched the game live for the first time, I was down on the defensive line. I was feeling pretty upset. I was leaning towards the no passing grades myself when I thought about doing this. And then as I went back and I rewatched it, I felt that it was not as bad as it seems. I want to credit Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers had a hell of a game, and he got the ball out of his hands about as quick as you could hope for as a NFL quarterback. It was ridiculous. We were inches away from what would have been a sack fumble by Bosa on that second drive. That could have been a big momentum shift, but Rodgers felt the pressure. It came within inches of him, but he stepped forward in the pocket and delivered the strike down near the goal line, I believe, to who else but Devontae Adams. And the game plan seemed to be the problem on my end of it. I feel like we had no answer for those quick passes. He came out, he set the tone with what they were going to do, and we just couldn't adjust to that. And then I also felt that behind the starters, the backups did not play well, that we weren't getting considerable pressure unless it was Bosa and the first stringers in there. Couldn't take advantage of a third string left tackle. I mean, that is worrisome for sure, concerning, and something that we should have been able to handle. But again, we did a reasonable job holding Aaron Jones and the Packers run game in check. It's probably because they were all over us in the short pass game, so they didn't care about getting the run game really rolling. But all those factors combined, I had to give the defensive line a C+.
D-.
Okay.
I don't know what you saw in the running game that said we held Aaron Jones back. The only reason why Aaron Jones was held back is because they stopped handing him off the ball. But every time he got the ball, he was gaining 3 to 5 yards, 4 to 6 yards. They were in second down and short every single time they handed off the ball. So this defensive line once again couldn't stop the run. We can put it on Aaron Rodgers for getting the ball out quick, but the New Orleans Saints, with the same type of trigger that Aaron Rodgers has, gave Aaron Rodgers fits. And this team didn't give him any fits. And we have a better defensive line, supposedly on paper, than the New Orleans Saints. And this is my point with the defensive line. Look, maybe a lot of my grading is on based off of what I expected from this. We weren't talking about this defensive line being a top 10 defensive line. We were talking about this defensive line being a top 5 defensive line.
Facts.
And they are playing like a bottom 15 defensive line at this point because they can't stop the run and they're not getting sacks. So what exactly are we doing with this defensive line? If we're not, and then once again, remember I talked about this weekend gave us examples of what we are looking for. Were you able to see the Cleveland versus Chicago game?
Yes.
So that defensive line with Myles Garrett and crew sacked a mobile quarterback in Justin Fields 9 times. Myles Garrett had 4.5 sacks just himself. Now, is Justin Fields had the same trigger that Aaron Rodgers and experience and all that kind of stuff? Not at all. But can you get 1 sack against Aaron Rodgers with this defensive line?
Yeah.
Did we get 1?
Yes,
no.
We got Eric Armstead had that 1 sack.
1, okay.
Yeah.
But we got 1 sack against this defense, against this makeshift offensive line that they have because they lost an all-pro center. They lost two really good left tackles, and they're just piecing together with rookies this offensive line, right? So to me, this defensive line is the most disappointing part of this team. Because if they're not playing at a level, every other aspect of the defense looks pedestrian. And that is what we're seeing because this defensive line is not getting the type of pressure. Another example, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, pretty good offensive line.
Very good offensive line.
Tom Brady, pretty good quarterback.
Pretty decent.
Okay, yeah. Aaron Donald on the Rams, when they needed a play, was it that Tom Brady's throwing the ball too quick? No. Was it that this offensive line was just too good? No. He went out there and made a damn play. Nick Bosa, if a tight end can chip you and take you completely out of the game, you are not the person that we think you are. Because they are doing much more to Aaron Donald, and somehow he is still able to make plays against a better team than who you just played, sir. So no, they don't get a C. They cannot pass because there are players and teams and defensive lines that are supposedly either at our level or not at our level that are showing that it can be done. We need to stop giving this team excuses and be like, you know what? They did okay here and they did. No, dominate. That is how you pass, is you dominate. Otherwise, you fail. This is a pass or fail for this defensive line. There's no in-betweens for me, Rob.
This is dominate or fail by Suneil. I like it.
We need that. This team isn't good enough if we're just getting a C out of this defensive line. So you fail because the object is to win. And we're not winning with the way this defensive line is playing.
You're very right about the idea of how this defense was built, that if we're getting middle of the road contributions from the defensive line, this defense is in trouble because we are relying upon that defensive line to be dominant, to be a force in the middle. Now, I had to look it up because I didn't want to come across and not have it, but I think it was a decent effort against the run. 19 carries, 82 yards, not terrible. Not getting run all over, not great. Somewhere in the middle of the road production. Anytime you're around that 4 yards a carry, that's not terrible.
No, that's terrible. Over 4 yards a carry is bad. That means they do that 3 times. That's a first down.
That's for sure a first down. You do that 3 times in a row, but that's not getting blown out of the water. That's
because they stopped running.
That's where I'll give you the point, is that they absolutely gave up on it because they were destroying us in the short passing game.
If we're getting
no question
4
about
yards,
it.
over 4 yards a carry, our running game is doing fantastic. The difference was Green Bay stopped running because they knew Aaron Rodgers was like, give me the ball. I could just throw it to Davante Adams and let's stop earning 4 to 5 yards. Let's start getting 15 to 20 yards. And that's the only thing, the reason why this wasn't an over 100-yard game for Aaron Jones. It had nothing to do with what our defense was doing.
I agree that if they didn't get away from him, it would absolutely have been a 100-yard game from Aaron Jones. But that may have tilted in our favor had we taken the ball out of Aaron Rodgers' hands. You make a fair point about Nick Bosa getting chipped by the tight ends. You got to wonder what George Kittle is teaching him at this tight end university.
Right.
Maybe he shouldn't be throwing that thing. We can't have Tanyan coming in and walking all over Nick Bosa. That's unacceptable in my book. So we need to make sure that that is remedied. All right, let's get forward to the linebackers grade, and I'm anxious to see whether there's any remaining passing grades for you. But linebackers, how'd you have them, Suneil?
D-. Fred Warner, you just became one of the highest paid middle linebackers in the world. Where are you? How are you getting on a 4th down drive? How are you letting Davante Adams just sit there right behind you, be out of position for Aaron Rodgers to throw? And look, that was a great throw by Aaron Rodgers.
Amazing throw.
But Fred Warner, you are the best covered linebacker in the game. And all we needed you to do was cover one person. Just if it was MVS, all right, cool. If it was, Randall Cobb, all right, cool. Davante Adams, look,
Davante.
That is the person that we know he's looking for. That is his one read. So this is what happened. Aaron Rodgers kept his eyes on Davante Adams the whole play, waited for him to just get right behind Fred Warner, and then threw a dime right to him.
An absolute dime.
Once again, you talked about 4 yards per carry, over 4 yards per carry. For that is linebackers not coming up and making the stop quick enough. We had 1 sack. That is linebackers not getting in the backfield and, stopping plays and things like that. This linebacking core, and look, Dre Greenlaw is no longer there because he's injured. Right. And I think he's a huge loss, and he's racking up money just sitting on the bench right now because I think the 49ers are seeing the value of Dre Greenlaw and how much better he makes Fred Warner, right? So I think a lot of people thought it was the opposite. Fred Warner makes Dre Greenlaw look better. Well, look, Fred Warner isn't looking like the best middle linebacker in the game this season. And maybe that's blasphemy, and I'll probably get killed for that take. But in my eyes, he's not looking like it right now. Does he have the potential to do that? Absolutely. We've seen it. But he's not playing that way. Once again, star players make star plays. Where was Fred Warner's star plays? Where was Aziz Al-Shari's star plays? Where are they? They're not there. So we could keep saying, oh, it was Aaron Rodgers. Well, a year ago, 2 years ago, Aaron Rodgers was still the same quarterback. For some reason, we were able to stop him back then. Now, all of a sudden, we can't. I don't know.
I mean, I like the take there. What I would say is I think I've already moved past the idea that this isn't the 2019 defense. So maybe my expectations were lower going into this. I really thought that the linebackers had a pretty decent game, helping to contain the run. Again, just keeping it in front of them. I think that anytime you're holding another team to around 4 yards a carry, that you're doing all right within the run defense. So I say it's decent, good tackling, good solid tackling, but they did not make the plays that they needed to in order to get off of the field. I agree with that wholeheartedly. And the pass over Warner's fingertips, again, I'm going to say much more of a spectacular play by Aaron Rodgers. The only critique that I have is Fred, with no one there in front of him, should have been a step or two deeper to begin with, and that would have put him in position to actually make the play. The penalty against Tanyan definitely took him down a bit in that one. That was a panic move. That was something that was uncharacteristic of Fred Warner. And I think you're right that without Greenlaw on the field there's a little bit of a lack of confidence. And potentially when you look at the play calling by D'Amico Ryans, there may be a lack of confidence for Fred in the relationship that's getting hammered out there. It's still early on in the season. I still expect a big season from Fred Warner, but I got to tell you, there was a little discrepancy in the odds I was getting on placing an MVP bet on Fred Warner, and I didn't end up making it, and I'm pretty glad that I didn't at this point.
Well,
makes me sad to say so, but that's the reality of it. All right, on to the group.
I don't think you said your grade. What did you put as your grade? I don't know if you said
my grade B- for the linebackers.
Wow.
B-.
Wow. So that's the highest grade you gave.
B- on defense. Yeah, I had wide receivers higher. B+ for the wide receivers.
Wow.
But I thought that the linebacking core was basically solid, not spectacular. Therefore, B-. B-, C+ is in that range for me. The secondary I thought was atrocious, but I also thought it was to be expected going into it. I thought they were going to be bad, and I thought that they were bad. Safeties carried them a little bit, again, with some solid tackling when needed to be, but no spectacular plays to balance it out. Rodgers was all over this secondary. I think going into it, at best, I was hoping for a C-level performance from this group. I was hoping that they would keep it in front of them. I was hoping that the scheme would put them in a position to effectively defend Davante Adams. But even doing so, I was expecting Davante Adams to have a 100-yard day, even considering good cornerback play, but we didn't get that. We had the nice tackles from the safeties, but other than that, I thought that it was pretty terrible. I did think schematically they were left hanging out to dry a bit, and we'll get into that when we touch on coaching, but I have to say this was as close to failing as I can get. I gave him a solid D-, and the only reason it wasn't an F is because I had C expectations going into it.
Yeah, I'm gonna go F. And the reason why it's an F is because, look, I could understand the plays where you're just getting, where like your rookie's getting out athleticized by a guy like Davante Adams.
Right.
But early in that game, I think it was in the first drive, MVS just blew by K'Wan Williams, who's one of our better cornerbacks. Just blew by him. It was just a straight go route. And he just, I'm like, what? Like, I can understand if this is Lenore. Okay, you're a rookie. K'Wan? Like, if our good cornerback is getting beat up this way, that's one. The second thing was this team is running this zone read covered with these corners that don't know how to play zone, it seems like. They're in the wrong positions. They let Davante Adams just eat. And I could understand if Davante Adams was making contested catches and he was going up and just being, a beast like we've seen D. Hopkins do and we've seen Davante do as well.
Right.
But these are they just did outside shoulder. And it wasn't even like the guy that was guarding was in good position. Fortunately, a lot of times it was Lenore that was getting beat up. which we were wondering, hey, when he plays a really good receiver, what's it going to look like? Didn't look good. And then when they changed to zone, Rob, it's like they don't know how to play it. Like they're just so out of position that there's all of this, room. And I think that sometimes because Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers, we're like, oh, it's because Aaron Rodgers. I hope so, because it seemed like maybe any decent quarterback would be able to make some of those throws, that because of just how much space there was.
And I think you have to look at the idea that even if you say it was Aaron Rodgers. I mean, look at the next two quarterbacks and wide receivers that we're going up against on the schedule. It's not as if this thing gets incredibly easy. And now we don't even have Goff to rely on for the Rams, right? Now we have to go up against Matthew Stafford, who's looking pretty goddamn good out there for the Los Angeles Rams.
Yeah.
And so it's going up against a series of very talented quarterbacks, very talented wide receivers, and a defensive back room that is just completely depleted at this point. I will say,
are we just gonna be okay dropping 6 interconference games because it's great quarterbacks? Because that's the reason that most 49er fans are giving right now. I've seen some of these commentators that are saying, some of these guys that are saying, oh, well, it's, Aaron Rodgers just made an amazing play and people are blaming the defense, or people are blaming this, people are blaming that. Well, what's the bad quarterback we're gonna play in our division? Name him, because I'm not seeing one. So if we're not going to be able to make those plays, then let's just drop the season. Like we'll just go over and be, we don't even have draft picks. So good thing, go Miami. You can go have like top 5 picks for the next 2 years, because clearly if we play a good quarterback, our defense is still okay. No, man, make the play.
I tell you what, if we end up giving away high draft picks for those first rounders that we traded to go up in this year's draft, that is going to be very, very painful.
Get Kyle out of here if that happens. Kyle needs to get out of here if that happens.
That for sure will cost someone their job at the end of the season if that's the case. All right.